Привет, малышка моя родная, ну как дела? Наверно, к дому зима, дорожки все замела. В небе над Грозным тают звезды в лучах зари. И только маме, что я в Чечне, не говори. В небе над Грозным тают звезды в лучах зари. И только маме, что я в Чечне, не говори.
So привет. I think this video is a little bit different than my others, but there's certainly a recurring theme. There are two things that have always been a big part of who I am: depression and an injustice intolerance. Since I developed a deep love for Russia, I have on many occasions contemplated over the way we are taught to dislike and be distrustful of Russians. Our whole lives is an insinuation that they're a different kind of human. Cold, violent, cruel. They couldn't possibly feel things as deeply as we do, or have relationships as meaningful as we do. Other than the fact that is clearly ridiculous, it's just accepted as normal. I think a very good indicator of this being untrue is the music of their men at war. I did mention before that war songs in general are very important to me. For over half my life, Vera Lynn has been one of my absolute favourite artists. Music is my number one lifelong passion, and she is the earliest example that I recall really seeing and understanding just how important and powerful music is. From then on, I was obsessed with music that was popular during both world wars. Glenn Miller, the Andrews Sisters, George Formby. With Russia and the Soviet Union being so involved with different wars over the last 2 centuries, I knew there had to be something equally as beautiful being produced by the soldiers of the USSR and Russia. The first one I came across was a more surprisingly popular one.
Темная ночь, только пули свистят по степи, только ветер гудит провода, тускло звезды мерцают.
That clip is from the 1943 Soviet movie Two Fighters. The song, Temnaya Nocho, Dark as the Night, is often credited to the actor performing it, Mark Burns, but it was actually written by poet Vladimir Agatov and musician Nikita Bogolovsky. It was extremely popular and would become one of the most well-known and beloved songs of the Great Patriotic War. While its dark atmosphere earned it a place within the TikTok generation, it was the lyrics that really caught my attention. After falling in love with the dark atmosphere like everyone else, lol.
Темная ночь.
There is something particularly devastating about all that the Soviet Union suffered during the Second World War, and the music certainly captures that well. Around 27 million people, military and civilians, died across the USSR during the war. Such insane numbers that aren't even spoken about outside of the Soviet Union. In fact, as far as my high school taught us, they never switched sides and had no part in Allied victory. Luckily, after leaving school, I continued learning about World War II and found that, despite the propaganda that America were to thank for smashing fascism and ending war, we should have been thanking the USSR. Большое спасибо.
Валяй дурака, Америка, вот те валенки мерзнешь небось, что Сибирь, что Аляска, 2 берега, баня, водка, гармонь и лосось, баня, водка, гармонь и лосось.
Don't Play the Fool America is a song by Lubir, a Soviet Russian band from Liberty, a city in the Moscow region, and a personal favourite of Mr. Putin. This song is a lot jollier than the others, and has very mixed reviews, though I personally love it. It gets quite the reaction out of the people who dislike it, but I think the fact it's so upbeat and unserious is part of its charm. Clearly I love the more solemn melancholic songs, but I can appreciate this one for being the opposite. Being able to find joy and silliness in an otherwise dire situation is a strength. They were perfectly capable of both though. In 1996, during the Chechen War, they released Combat.
Патроны, водка, махорка в цене. А на войне нелегкий труд, а сам стреляй, а то убьют. Серыми тучами небо затянуто, нервы гитарной струною натянуты, дождь барабанит с утра и до вечера. Время застывшее кажется вечностью. Мы наступаем по всем направлениям. Танки, пехота, огонь артиллерии. Нас убивают, но мы выживаем. И снова в атаку себя мы бросаем.
I think this proves not only their versatility but also Nikolai Rastoragiyev's understanding of when to be serious and when to be the light that the Soviet public needed. Before the Cold War's end in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union, from December 1979 to February 1989, the Soviet-Afghan war against the rebellion Afghan Mujahideen took place. Afghan or Swallowing Dust, reportedly by Alexander Doroshenko, though it is impossible to confirm that for sure. Seriously, try. Is a song about the real cost of human violence. The lyrics are miserable and honest. To be alone in such terrible, unfamiliar conditions, so young and far away from home, having seen all your friends die, is unfathomable to most of us. It has long outlasted the war it was written for, and is still an important song for Russian soldiers and their loved ones. It's narrated by a 19-year-old who has 2 broken legs and no water after his helicopter was shot down by the Mujahideen. He's describing the final moments on Earth, watching as the Black Tulip, the aircraft that transported the bodies of Soviet soldiers back home, circles above him. He cries as he contemplates his incomplete life, before snapping himself out of it, swearing to die with a smile. The Soviet casualties were between 14,000 and 20,000. I have 2 songs left that I want to talk about, and they are my favourites. I introed the video with the first one, Don't Tell My Mum in Chechnya. This song is actually just a version of Hello Sister written by Vladimir Andreyuk during the Soviet-Afghan War.
Привет, сестренка, моя родная, ну как дела? Зима, дороги, домой, наверное, уж замела. А звезды падают над Кандагаром в лучах зари. Ты только, маме, что я в Афгане, не говори.
Since this song was released, it has often been rewritten to apply to whatever conflict the soldiers singing it's involved in. It was the Chechnya version I first heard though, and this is the one I found most touching. Beyond just the song itself, I want to tell you a few things that made it particularly painful for me since seeing them during the research for this video. I can't line it up perfectly because I can't really understand what they're saying. The comments that discussed what was being said though, the awareness and honesty of it, gave me the chills. It's dangerous to film that, you'll have to watch it later. And those warriors' eyes. be able to tell if I live that long.
Ну тут пекло вообще, да?
А?
Пекло здесь. Самое...
In this clip, the men smoking and resting look to the camera and say a devastating combination of things like, "Hello mum, I'll be okay. Don't worry mama, I'll be home soon. Hello mama, I want to come home." They're just boys after all, they shouldn't be there. How many of them made it home as promised? Of those of them that made it home, how many of them were able to live comfortable, happy lives?
Давай, может быть, как-нибудь, пока не поздно, отведите ребят, Алик, не делайте это, не делайте, не надо. Вы в любом случае, Алик, пойми, и ты погибнешь, и я погибну. Что с этого толку будет? Сам правильно пойми, кто от этого выиграет. Мы же от этого с тобой не выиграем, понимаешь? Если я тебя увижу в бою, понимаешь, что ты отлично, не отлично, уже я тебя филить не буду, так же, как и ты меня, понимаешь? Ты лучше ко мне как гость приедь, Алик. Отводи ребят, не надо. Пожалей их матерей, пожалей их самих. Отводи ребят, Алик, дай команду.
Before moving on to the final song, I want to show one last example of how Russian soldiers adapted to bring them closer to home, no matter where war takes them.
Звезды падают на меня сейчас, в лучах зари. Что едет падает, мне говори. А звезды падают на цветодар, в лучах зари. Только падает, что едут бахнет, мне говори.
Я, конечно, думать буду, и я, конечно, думать буду, когда на трубочку глядел на голубой ее дымок, когда на трубочку глядел на голубой ее дымок. Как ты когда-то мне лгала, как ты когда-то мне лгала, сердце девичье свое давно другому отдала, сердце девичье свое давно другому отдала. Я только верной пулей жду, я только верной пулей жду, кто ударит мне часть свою, и чтоб лететь нашу вражду.
Now, last but certainly not least, When We Were at War or Когда мы были на войне was written by poet David Samorlov, who is considered one of the most important examples of the generation of poets that had to leave their studies for the front. He wrote it as a poem that was included in his poetry collection Voices Beyond the Hills, and between 1981 and 1985 it was turned into a song by musician Viktor Stolyarov, who read it in a magazine. The song gained popularity under the guise of an old Cossack song. It's interesting just how many people believed it was an old Cossack song on the internet, on Russian radio, TV, at celebrations. Viktor himself was surprised by the song's reach. I was told that this song was heard in the most unexpected places. For example, it was sung by tourists in the Tian Shan Mountains, and by me on a Mancunian council estate. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed any of the songs I included, there'll be links below. I'd like to dedicate this video to the memory of all the Soviet and Russian soldiers killed in the aforementioned conflicts.